I think today I'm kind of looking a little bit like a rich widow whose husband died under mysterious circumstances. I feel like this is a vibe, right? Hello fellow earthlings, it's Libs, and today I'm going through my non-fiction TBR. So I've been seeing a few videos like this going around recently, and I thought it's a good time to go through the ridiculously large list of non-fiction books I want to read and start trying to narrow it down to the books that I actually want to get to soon. So I've got 10, which I've narrowed down from 50. So I'm hoping I actually get to these books soon, because I'm just so bad at actually reading the books I say I'm going to read. This time I'm going to manifest this into reality. I can make it happen. I think I'll start with the books I physically own.
5 minutes later.
So the first book I have is probably the most exciting, and that is The White Mouse by Nancy Wake. This is her autobiography. Actually, they no longer print this anymore, so I did manage to track it down because I am obsessed with Nancy Wake. My favourite book of 2020 was Codename Helene, which is a historical fiction story about her life, and I'm so excited to read this, but I'm also just kind of nervous because this was such a hunt to find it, and I'm scared of reading it because it's old and I love it, and I just have to read it, but I'm just keen. So yeah, it's the autobiography of the woman the Gestapo called the White Mouse. And if you don't know anything about Nancy Wake, I would definitely recommend doing a little bit of research because she's super cool. She was a journalist in France and then was working with the Allies to sneak information through France, and she did some really cool things and got away with a lot of it because she just looked like a housewife and no one really suspected her, and she was just incredibly cool. So yeah, I recommend Codename Helene, but I'm definitely keen to read her autobiography since there's a lot of biographies about her out there, but I don't think that they're obviously not going to be as good as her autobiography, so I'm really keen to read this. The other one I'm really excited to read that I already own is Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell, which I believe is about when Orwell was homeless and living on the streets. Yes. So I'm really keen to read this one. I'm going to be reading 1984 really soon for a reading vlog coming up. So I think I'll read that first and then read this one to understand Orwell a bit more, because I haven't actually read any Orwell yet. And I really want to, and I want to collect them all in these editions because they're amazing. So I'm really keen to read. I don't know anything else really about it or that much about Orwell, so I'm really excited to learn in his own words. I'm going to get up Storygraph because I can't remember anything about the books I'm reading unless I have it in front of me. If you want to see what I'm reading and what I'm enjoying, Storygraph is probably the best place to actually see that, so I'll link that down below. And try and figure out where my list is that I made.
2 hours later.
So the third book I'm really excited to get around to is It's Not About the Burqa, Muslim Women on Faith, Feminism, Sexuality and Race by Mariam Khan. That's kind of what I know about it, but I'm really keen to read this book. It's a collection of essays, I believe, and I'm just really keen to actually hear Muslim voices talking about women's issues as opposed to just people assuming they know what's going on in a completely different realm to the one that they live in. So I'm just really keen to learn more from own voices. So I'm excited for this one. I know the audiobooks at the library, so that's how I heard about this book, and I've been really keen to read it ever since I saw it. So I'll get around to that one soon. A book I've heard a little bit about is A Short History of the World According to Sheep by Sally Coulthard, which is sort of history and nature-y. That tells you so much, doesn't it? So it explores the huge impact that sheep have had on human history. I don't really know what that's going to mean because I haven't read the book yet, but I'm really excited. I've heard a couple people talking about this book before, and it just sounds really interesting and like it's going to definitely be up my street. So I'm really keen to get around to that one. Another one I've heard a bit about is Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker. I think this was like for his PhD. He did this, and I'm really interested to learn more about why we sleep. It's just such an interesting... we don't really think about it. It's just we sleep all the time. If you're me, you sleep all the time. So I'm really interested to find out more about the scientific reason as to why we have to sleep and why we don't function when we don't sleep. So I feel like it's going to be a really interesting book. I'm really keen to get around to it. Then I want to get around to reading The Shortest History of China by Linda Javin, which is meant to be quite a short book about the history of China. But I thought this would be a really interesting way to learn about a part of the world that I don't know very much about, and actually read about it in a quick way that's not too dense, but still learn a lot. So I've seen this one around the place in a lot of bookshops recently, so I'm hoping this is a good read. I haven't heard any reviews about it, but I think it's going to be good, and so I'm hoping to get around to that one soon. And it was published this year, so I feel like it's probably a good time to read it. A book I'm kind of scared to read, but know I really have to, is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. So this is all about the Stanford sexual assault case, and also Chanel Miller's life. I don't know much more than that going into it, but I'm really... I don't want to say I'm keen to read this because I'm not really, but I know it's going to be an important and impactful read and an important one. So yeah, this is high on the list. I just want to make sure I'm in a good headspace before going into it. Another book that was really popular a couple of years ago, but I didn't get around to reading at the time, is The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. I mean, the issue with trying to tell you what these books are about is that the title tells you everything I already know. So I have nothing to add. But I'm excited to read a book that talks about the women instead of just talking about Jack the Ripper, because I think there's just a lot of focus on the killer instead of the victims. So I'm excited to get around to this one. It's not too long, I don't think. Yeah, I'm keen as a bean for this one. I can't remember how many books I've told you about. Okay, number 9 is This Is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan, which came out this year as well and is also quite short. And it looks at why, when some plants are brewed to make beverages, some are legal and some are not. So like how some drugs from plants, are legal and some are not. And I'm really interested to learn about this because it's not something I've really thought about too much before. But I think it's going to be a very interesting read. I've seen really good reviews of it so far. So I think it's going to be very, very cool. It's also great cover. not that that's why we go to nonfiction, but still good cover means something. I'm really excited to get around to this one. I have a feeling it's going to be very high on my list because I know people who will be interested to have discussions about this book. So it's probably the one at the top of the list, even though there are other ones I think I probably would want to read more, but I don't know. I'm rambling. I haven't had coffee. This is my pre-coffee rambles. And I think the final book, I'm going to make this 11 because there's another book I really want to read too. So this is number 10. Number 10 is Growing Up Queer in Australia, edited by Benjamin Law. And this is a collection of essays by a whole heap of Australian writers talking about growing up being queer in Australia. There are lots of different books in this series. There's Growing Up Aboriginal in Australia and Growing Up Disabled in Australia. And I know those books have been very popular. They're definitely also on my list, but I think this is the one I'll probably get to first. Maybe it depends on what's available from my library and when. But the whole series I really want to read, and I think there's a few more as well. These are just the more recent ones. So I'm interested to get around to these things. I'm getting more and more into collections of essays by Australian writers on different topics. They're just really good ways to find local writers anyway, but also like the topics. If you find a book on a topic you're really interested in, it's amazing. So I'm really keen to get around to these. And sneaky book 11, which I completely forgot was a non-fiction book until I actually looked at this, is Pandora's Jar, Women in the Greek Myths by Natalie Haynes. I really want to read Natalie Haynes. I actually physically own this one. Oh my goodness, hang on, I'm going to find it because the cover's amazing.
2,000 years later.
Here we go. It's beautiful. Look at how beautiful it is. I love this book so much. Not having read it yet. I completely forgot that this was a non-fiction book. So I'm really keen to get around to this. This just explores the different women in the Greek myths, and I think there's a chapter dedicated to pretty much everyone, and there's also pictures showing images or paintings of the women. So yeah, there's a chapter on the Amazons, Helen, Pandora, Medea. Yeah, there's a few more in here as well. Medusa I just saw. So okay, this one is now at the top of the list of books I want to read. I think I was going to save this for doing a book reading Greek myth retellings. I want to make that video a lot, but it keeps getting pushed back. So I'll see how I go with that, because I'm really, really keen to read this one. I got this for my birthday this year, and I really want to get around to it soon, because I have a feeling I'm going to love it. Yes. Okay, so that is it for this video. Those are 11 of the books I'm really non-fiction books I'm really keen to get around to reading soon. Let me know in the comments if you have any non-fiction book recommendations for me, because 50 books just isn't enough to be on the list. So I'm scared. I'm excited. Got so many books to read before the year is up, and then my list for next year is astronomical. But let me know if you have any book recommendations down below. I'll link my Storygraph, blog, Instagram, all that down below. Like and subscribe to see more from me, and I will see you next time. Bye.